Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Under Review with Jared John. Each episode will analyze the impact the sports world has on society, such as gender equality, race, economy, history, and much more. So step up to the plate and come listen in. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining me for my first ever podcast. I am your host, Jared John. This is Under Review. Next to me is a great friend of mine, Chris McGovern, who is here to talk about the NCAA in general. Chris, how you doing today?
What's going on, Jared? What's good? Thanks for having me on.
Of course. I thought, what better person to talk about the NCAA than a fellow college student? And your intelligence on this subject is actually remarkable. So I thought, why not have a great first guest? Today we're going to talk about, March Madness is coming up upon us. It is almost here. It begins Tuesday, March 19th. On Wednesday, February 20th, was Duke versus North Carolina. And each of these teams have had bad blood. What would you say on, the kind of history of the team? Because it has been here for a while. I mean, the game was sold out. 9,314 fans standing loud and proud in the Duke Dome. So what would you just give a little background history of this match?
Well, I feel like it doesn't matter, which players are on which teams, who has the best recruits. They could both be having bad seasons. Every time that these two teams come together, they're going to sell out. They're going to be on national TV. It's going to be a big deal. It's one of the best rivalries in college sports, if not, sports in general. So it doesn't matter that Zion was on Duke. It doesn't matter if Christian Laettner was on Duke or Kyrie. All that matters is that it's Duke against North Carolina. It's Coach K against Roy Williams, and it doesn't matter what arena it's in, it's going to sell out, and it's going to be expensive.
Chris, you touched upon it. These two teams have met a total of 249 times, and I think you can agree that the rivalry, for those who don't really know about college hoops, it's kind of like the Red Sox and the Yankees. It's bad blood.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. It's up there with the top rivalries in sports in this country, at least.
So these two teams met kind of in the beginning of the year for the regular season, another college basketball game. However, this game was a little different. As you mentioned, Zion Williamson, he's projected to be the first-round pick in the NBA draft. They also have a player named R.J. Barrett and Cam Reddish. All of them, according to ESPN, they did a mock draft. All those three players are supposed to be top 5 in the upcoming 2019 draft. And the North Carolina Tar Heels also have projected 2 first-round picks in Nazir Little and Cody White. So now that you guys know the history a little bit of why this game was so important, we're touching upon a day because the conversation of should NCAA players be getting paid. The average ticket, and I'm going to read this from SportsIllustrated.com. It says, according to StubHub, the average listing price of Wednesday's ACC rivalry game in Durham is currently $4,670 on the secondary market. The cheapest ticket to just get in the door is a whopping $2,927, including estimated fees. $2,927 for a college basketball game. That's the middle of the year. Chris, what do you think about that?
Well, like I said before, it's never going to be cheap to watch one of those games. Obviously, this year was an exception considering that Duke has the top 3 recruits in the nation in Cam Reddish, Zion, and R.J. Barrett. So they're already going to be the main attraction in college basketball this year no matter where they go. But also you have to think about the fact that it is Duke and North Carolina. I really don't think that there's anything wrong with that. And also the arena is not as big as you would think. They're not playing at Madison Square Garden. There's only a select number of seats in this gym. It's not anywhere near the biggest in the country. So you have to take that in consideration too.
But Chris, my problem is none of that income, none of that money that, Duke gathered is going to any of the players or anybody in the NCAA who plays Division I basketball or who plays any Division I sport. None of this money is going to them. From ESPN, they stated that the national championship game for D1 basketball last season, Villanova against Michigan, was as low as $67, but yet this game in the regular season is 2,927.
Well, they also played the national championship game in a football stadium that has like 90,000 seats in it. So you have to take that, like I said before, it's all about the availability of the ticket. And Barack Obama was in attendance for Duke and North Carolina this season. So, it wasn't just an ordinary game, and it didn't feel like an ordinary game, even though it was just a game in the middle of February. It meant more to the people there.
Speaking of celebrities, Obama, Ken Griffey Jr., he was a famous baseball player for those who don't know, Todd Gurley, he was just in this past Super Bowl, and Spike Lee, Oscar winner, they were all there for the game. However, as you said, it felt more like just a regular game. It felt like kind of a championship game. Also from ESPN, they stated that the NCAA pulled in more than $1 billion in revenue for the first time in history in the 2016-2017 school year. Yet none of that is going to any of the players. Are you opposed to that? Because I firmly am, but I'll hear your side first.
Well, I think you should start off by saying for basketball especially, it's not the NCAA's rule that these kids have to play. It's the NBA's rule that they need to be out of high school for at least 1 year. That doesn't mean that they have to go to college. LaMelo Ball, there's plenty of other players, Mitchell Robinson, that plays for the Knicks right now, that are top prospects that chose not to go to college, and you could play overseas and then you can come back over. Yeah, it might hurt your draft stock a little bit because you're not in the public eye, but if you're good, you're good, and scouts will find you and they'll make sure that you get drafted. It's not the NCAA's fault that these kids have to play or that they're playing for these teams. They're going there on their own free will. And you get into the fact that, yeah, maybe you could look at a Duke North Carolina game that's so much money, but what about like NJIT against Jacksonville State in the Atlantic Sun Conference? Those tickets are not even $10. So what should those kids be getting paid? Should they be getting paid the same amount as Zion? Should everybody get a flat rate, but they're already on top of the tuition and fees and all of the housing that they already get? That's well over probably $100,000 in some cases for private schools. It makes no sense because then you have to determine who gets what. Does Zion get more than Cam Reddish on Duke? It will get messy if you try to break it down. Should it be the students on each team get a percentage? So like Duke kids get paid more than kids that go to Rutgers because Duke pulls in more money than Rutgers. I think that's the only fair way to do it, that you do it by school. Say Duke brings in a certain amount of money. Every player on Duke should get a certain amount of money based off of the basketball revenue, and same for Rutgers or wherever.
I just think it's ridiculous that none of this money, somehow, some way is incorporated for the players. I mean, D1, D2, D3. I know a great buddy of mine who goes to D3 school, and yet he was part of the wrestling team, but yet he had to stop it because of his grades. So being an athlete or student athlete or an athlete student, which is a huge debate, can take a toll on someone. So you're giving crazy amount of hours towards the sport that you're playing, but yet you're not getting anything in return in terms of D1. Like, I'm not talking about D3. However, my buddy did have to drop that sport in order to focus on school. So yet none of this, I'm not saying certain players should get more. I totally agree. Zion would probably get more than RJ Barrett. However, I think the NCAA should create something so that the players could get at least some sort of revenue. I mean, if you imagine that you're a father and your son wants to go to this rematch on March 9th, the lowest ticket is $991. So your son tells you, hey, Dad, let's go to this game. We're in North Carolina. The stadium's right here. Let's go. But yet you have to tell your son, no, we can't go because it's $991 for a college hoop game.
Well, whose fault is that? Is that the school? Is that the school's fault?
But I'm saying that's how it connects to the outside world. I mean, my dad, for God's sakes, he heard the price of this and he just decided, he's like, I'm boycotting March Madness this year, because he doesn't believe that a ticket should be over $2,000. I mean, the average ticket was up there with the Super Bowl, and yet this is a college hoop game, and yet none of it is going to the players. And I think it's just an uncertain amount of money for a college D1. It doesn't matter if these two teams have a history that's as good as the Red Sox and the Yankees. It doesn't matter who is on the team that they might go number one. I mean, I agree with you. Zion has been scouted since high school, and most of these players have been. But I just think that's heart crushing if you tell whoever you want to go with, or someone's telling you, "Hey, let's go to this game." No, I can't because it's $991.
But people were still there, right?
They were.
So it was sold out. So that means that however many thousands of people did pay that price to go.
But it's a certain amount of people that could do that. I mean, like I said, the average and you did say it's true, they were playing in a football stadium, but it was $67, so more people could attend. So I think if you make it beneficial to the outside world, I mean, do you think NCAA gets a bad rap for, having or allowing the ticket to be this expensive, or do you think that they're fine?
I think that it's not really the NCAA's fault that it got that high. I think that the game probably sold out whenever the first day the tickets went on sale. They probably sold out at face value, and then people on secondary sites like StubHub or SeatGeek bumped the price up. It had nothing to do. I'm sure that Duke didn't set the prices at $998 or whatever it was. That would be crazy if they did. Now, I don't know if that's true or not.
So do you believe that there's nothing wrong with the ticket sales and college athletes shouldn't get paid, even though they're risking the majority of their day, pouring to this sport, even though their grades might take a failure for it? And do you think, what's your idea?
I mean, like I said, it's their choice. If they want to do better in school, then they could study harder. If they want to not have to go through this system of the NCAA, then they don't have to. If we're talking about basketball, I mean, football is a whole different story because, you have to play in college for 2 years instead of 1, and there's no real alternative route to the NFL. But if we're strictly talking about basketball, there's plenty of other avenues that you can take to get to the league and support your family. And if you're talking about money, you can go to you can even go to like Puerto Rico. They have professional leagues there. You don't even have to go out of the country. You can go and make a little bit of money and then get drafted the same time as the other kids your age. You do not have to do it. It's a choice that they make. Now, most kids do make it, and it's probably the smarter choice, and yeah, they might have to suck it up for a couple months, but I don't think it's unfair because come June, Zion's going to be the number 1 overall pick, automatically make, I think the minimum for a top 5 pick is like $8 million, and he's going to sign probably at least $100 million shoe deal with whichever company he chooses. So do I feel bad for him? No. I think that it's perfectly fair, and like I said, the only other way to do it would be to do it by team, and everybody on the team gets the same amount of money.
And what about the other players that are not or won't be as successful, as will be like our final, send-off for this first ever episode of Under Review?
It's not the NCAA's fault if they're not good. Like, if you're not good, you're not good. Sorry. Like, you don't have to play basketball. You don't have to play football. You're going to school to be a student. Do that. You can get an academic scholarship if you really wanted to. Nobody put the basketball in your hand and forced you. I mean, I don't feel bad.
All right, thank you, Chris. That is the conclusion of this first ever episode of Under Review with Jared John. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and thank you for listening to Under Review.
Peace.